This episode of the Amateur Traveler Podcast is sponsored by Smart Travel, a new podcast from NerdWallet. You know that one friend who always finds the best travel deals, picks the right credit cards, and somehow ends up in first class for the price of coach? Smart Travel is like that friend, but in podcast form. They cover things travel finance, like when lounge access beats buying airport dinner for four, how to survive or even save on a holiday travel, even if you're booking late, appropriate for this episode, and when it makes sense to book flights with cash versus points, which travel reward programs are adding partners and which are subtracting perks. And Smart Travel does that all with a little bit of humor and a lot of travel smarts. I am not the expert on these kind of questions, and one of the places I go to find my answers is NerdWallet. Upgrade trips, not bills, with NerdWallet. Follow Smart Travel wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks to Smart Travel and NerdWallet for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. Here's the thing about being a great gift giver. When you find something truly perfect for everyone on your list, you almost don't want to give it away. That's what happens with me with my Quince order. Everything's so soft and well made, I'm seriously tempted to keep it all for myself. Quince pretty much has your whole list covered. Mongolian cashmere sweaters for $50 when you normally pay $200 or more for them, the kind you'd wear on repeat. Then there's the denim that goes with everything, silk tops and skirts for when you want to look put together, cashmere beanies and scarves and down jackets that actually keep you warm. By working directly with trusted factories that maintain high standards for both craftsmanship and ethical practices, and by cutting out the middlemen and markups, Quince is able to pass those savings straight to you. You've heard me talk about how much I love my Quince travel pants. My wife's pants are now on order too, because she's heard me talk about it a lot, even though she doesn't listen to the show. Find gifts so good you'll want to keep them with Quince. Go to quince.com/traveler for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. Amateur Traveler, episode 976. Today, Amateur Traveler talks about Roman ruins and Amazigh granaries, troglodyte homes, and desert oases as we go to the country of Libya. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about Libya. I'd like to welcome to the show AJ Ajay from Intu Libya at intulibya.com, which is a travel agency for Libya. Oddly enough, AJ has come to talk to us about the country of Libya. AJ, welcome to the show.
I appreciate you having me.
And what's your connection with Libya?
I am Libyan, so I was born here and my whole family is Libyan. I'm what you would call probably a third culture kid. I grew up abroad, traveled the world, studied, did some work, and I have finally come back to Libya and decided to start a travel agency.
Excellent. And I'm guessing part of that time abroad was the U.S. because you have no Libyan accent as far as I can tell here.
Yeah, I grew up in Toronto, Canada.
Toronto, oh, close enough.
Yeah.
Right. Excellent. And why should someone go to Libya?
That's an interesting question. So there's a little bit of everything for people in Libya. There's a lot of great food. There's a lot of great history. There's a lot of interesting landmarks. But the main thing that intrigued me about Libya after driving around it was, one, the vast size, but number two was how untouched it was. Libya hasn't really developed its tourism industry since the 1950s. So ever since we found oil, we forgot about tourism. So there's a lot of untouched stuff. And after being a digital nomad, seeing the world, there's a special feeling when you walk somewhere and you realize that nobody else has been here for the longest time. So all that over tourism stuff goes out the window. Instead, we're talking about actually building infrastructure to showcase what is available. So that's what drew me to Libya. But like I said, there's food, there's Roman architecture, there's Greek, there's Phoenician, there's Ottoman, there's the Garamites, there's the prehistoric people, there's sand dunes. Libya is 90% Sahara Desert. So there's a little bit of everything here for anybody.
Excellent. And before we get into your itinerary, we do have the elephant in the room here, which you and I talked about before this call, which is that currently the U.S. State Department tells me not to go to Libya. So
Yeah,
you have feet on the ground there. Do you want to comment on that?
that throws a wrench in a lot of projects that we have going, specifically archaeological projects, because there's a lot of stuff in Libya that is still underground. But the safety aspect of it, Libya has an e-visa system. They are welcoming tourists in. They have rules and regulations that they've set up to make sure that everybody stays safe throughout these trips. And I find that as long as we stick within these guidelines, as a tourist, you are safe. But I will also say that there is probably around about 8 to 9 million Libyans that live in this country. And if you go and ask them, they'll tell you that it's very safe. Petty crime doesn't really exist. It's more so bouts of uncertainty and unrest that is politically driven. And I don't really want to talk about the politics of it too much, but since I've moved back in 2023, I don't think very much has happened that has made me think, oh, I need to leave and I need to leave immediately. So I can only really give my 2 cents on it. But generally speaking, I would say that Libya is reasonably safe as anybody anywhere else that I've traveled in the world.
I am assuming, like any country, there are places that you might not go. We talk about those.
Yes, most definitely. So Libya is the 16th biggest country in the world. There's a lot to see before you go to any danger areas. The government has procedures and protocols, and we let them know ahead of time where we're going and what we're doing. And if you're going anywhere that's considered, oh, there's a 50-50 chance that something could happen, they'll most likely tell you no. What they'll also do is they'll turn around and basically say, okay, if you really want to go there, what we'll do is we'll arm up some security, we'll go do some rounds, we'll put in some work. So everything is possible in terms of where you want to go. There's always going to be some pushback for the dangerous zones, but like anywhere in the world, as long as you sign the right waiver, somebody's going to be willing to take you there.
Yeah, that's not necessarily what we recommend on Amateur Traveler. What itinerary do you recommend?
So the itinerary that I do recommend is using Tripoli as a home base. Flights into Tripoli mainly come from Tunisia and Istanbul. There aren't a lot of international flights landing in the Tripoli International Airport. But the ones that most people get on come from Tunisia and Istanbul. There are options from Cairo. There are options from Rome. There's a couple of European destinations that are currently considering reopening their routes as well. But using Tripoli as home base, I would say that one of the most amazing places that you can go in Libya is Liptus Magna. And Liptus Magna is a old Roman city. It's the third biggest in North Africa of the Roman settlements, and it is an incredibly interesting place, mainly because one of the Roman emperors came from that town, and he's originally from Liptus Magna. In Arabic, we say Libda. So he's from that region, and he built up that town. So you can imagine the Roman baths, the gladiatorial ring. They've got the horse carriage racing spaces. They've got arcs everywhere. They've got a lot of stuff in Liptus Magna, and a lot of it still hasn't been excavated. So as you're walking over areas that you would think are just grass, your tour guide will whip out a couple of pictures and be like, this is currently beneath you right now, and we know it's there because of sonar.
So you mentioned Roman emperor. So this is Septimius Severus, who is the emperor from there. And when you go there right now, how far is this from Tripoli? You're saying we're using Tripoli as a base. Is this an hour drive, or are we doing a day trip, or what's going on?
So Tripoli is about an hour and a half drive away from Liptus Magna. And along the way, you will be driving down the coastal road. Throughout the coastal road, you'll be passing by a lot of local areas. You'll pass by Tajura. You'll pass by an area where there's a lot of beaches and Ghanima and beach houses. A lot of local people go there to vacation. So it's about an hour and a half away, roughly. On the drive from Tripoli towards Libda, you will see a lot of stands on the side of the road where people sell everything from tea, coffee. You will see people selling honey. You'll see people selling flowers. You'll see people selling just about any kind of food that you can imagine along the way. A lot of corn as well.
I wouldn't think of corn in Libya. You're stretching my brain here, but okay.
So there's actually whole areas along the coast where corn is farmed between Tripoli and Liptus Magna. So there's a stretch
Hmm.
of farms. I don't know how many there are, but when we're talking about the size, we're talking about at least 200 to 300 acres worth of farms that I've seen where they just grow corn.
Okay. And then when I get to the ruins, are there specific things that I should see? It's a large site. What stands out as far as Roman ruins go in this particular spot?
So when you first get to the ruins in Liptus Magna, you will be greeted by the security guys, and they'll give you some water, give you a map that shows you all the different areas around it, and then you'll meet up with your tour guide. All the tour guides that they use are local to the area, so they live there. A
Got
lot
it.
of them basically spend their whole lives around these ruins. Not all of them are archaeologists per se. Some of them are just tour guides, but a lot of them do know a lot about the archaeology and do know a lot of archaeologists around the European universities mostly because they've come to do excavations. Because, like we said, a lot of Liptus
Hmm.
Magna is underground. Now, going back to the places that are above ground, some of the best views that you can get are from inside the theater in Liptus Magna. Just
Okay.
3 weeks ago, there was a live performance inside of that theater, a musical performance. They brought a whole bunch of bands, they brought a few singers, and they just set it up. And I remember looking at it and thinking, this is basically what it was used for during the Roman era. And it was a very special event. So you've got the theater that is a must see. You've got to climb up to the top because Liptus Magna sits along the coastline. You can see
Hmm.
the new town of Homs, which is not too far away, but you can also see all of the coast. So it's a really interesting sight to see. Inside the theater, your tour guide will most likely show you the hidden sound engineering of the Roman era by asking you to stand on one side of the theater and move to the other, the
Hmm.
different levels of noise as you clap. So there's a couple of different things inside the theater that make it interesting beyond
Hmm.
just how old it is. So outside of the theater, you also have the Ark of Septimus Severus. And the reason this is important is because the Ark of Septimus Severus still to this day has the quote unquote natural designs that were put on it. So they've been very well maintained over the years. And when you stand under the ark, it is approximately, I want to say 15 to 20 meters high. So it's very high. And as you're looking all around the ark, you can see all of the detail underneath it. It is genuinely one of those places, one of those things where I can walk over and touch the pillars, but normally I'd be expecting some red tape or something to stop
Sure.
me from going near it because it is genuinely that amazing. And it just being out there under the Sahara sun is mind blowing to me, but it's there. So you've got the ark, you've got the theater.
And one clarification, you're calling it an arc. I would call it an arch.
Arch.
That's that Toronto accent, I guess. But
Yeah, my bad. I'll try to
cool.
continue with the arch.
That's okay.
Outside of that, so Liptus Magna is absolutely huge, third biggest Roman
Hmm.
settlement along the North African side of the Mediterranean. So once you leave the main area where you'll see the Roman baths and stuff, and you hop in a car and you drive 5 minutes away, you'll enter an entertainment zone that they had. And in that
Hmm.
entertainment zone, when you drive over, you have this amazingly huge gladiatorial ring that opens up in front of you. And it's like you're standing above it by default because it was underground and it's been excavated. So you have to climb
Hmm.
down the seating area and treat them like they were steps to get to the bottom of the ring. And then you can go back through the tunnels that existed and see the rooms where the gladiators and the tigers and the wild animals would have been brought in from. So that is an incredibly rare experience because I don't think I've done that anywhere in the world, not even the Colosseum in Rome.
Oh, I've had a chance. You can get a VIP tour there to get under.
I,
But yeah,
I need to do that at some point. I need to compare the two.
I recommend it. But this sounds very cool.
I should definitely do that. So those are probably the three main things that I would recommend.
Cool.
Definitely not skipping in Liptus Magna, but
Cool.
there's a lot of other stuff that your tour guides will talk about as well.
That's great. Thanks. That really helped me get a picture of it. And this is, by the way, a UNESCO World Heritage Site,
Yes, it
which
is.
probably people would not be surprised by at this point.
Yeah.
Cool. Where to next?
So after your day trip to Liptus Magna, I would start up and move towards Sabrata, which is the opposite end and roughly about the same distance away, so an hour and a half in the car. And Sabrata is currently, today, it is a fishing village. There's a university there, there's a regular infrastructure, but the vast majority of people live by the water. There's a lot of scuba diving, there's a lot of spearfishing in the area. A lot of the people feel at one with the water, and it's because it used to be a fishing village and has grown into this city. When you enter the ruins in Sabrata, you have a theater there as well that has been very well maintained. It's probably been reconstructed. I can't confirm that 100%, but with the size of how big the walls are and how flimsy they look standing, you would probably guess that they have been reconstructed somewhere in the last 30 years or so. So in terms of views, it looks amazing. If you catch it on a sunny day and you're walking in, it genuinely feels like you're walking into the spotlight. It is also another big theater slash amphitheater. I always get the two mixed up.
Amphitheater just means that it has that sloped bowl shape. So all amphitheaters are theaters, but not all theaters are amphitheaters.
That's an interesting relationship. I'm going to need to Google after this. So in Sabrata, the theater has the back doors facing the sea. So while you're standing on stage and you could have probably 20,000 people sat down in these seats in front of you and you turn back and you look, if you look through all the doors, the entrances onto the stage, you can directly see the sea and you can see the pathways leading to it. So these places were used as trading ports. And when I say these places, Tripoli, Liptus Magna, and Sabrata. Tripoli, its olden name was Oya. So Oya, Liptus Magna, and Sabrata were used as trading posts for a lot of the people, for the caravans coming from the Sahara Desert. And the road that currently connects these three places in Arabic is called Tariq al-Sahili, which means the coastal road. And today it's a road that our cars drive on, but historically speaking, it would have been a road that caravans used. And if you think back to the arches that you have in Liptus Magna, and there's another one in Tripoli that we'll cover in a second, as well as another one in Sabrata that is currently underground. All of these arches will have been places where they were checkpoints or entrances into the city or significant geographical structures to say you are entering this terrain under this ruler. So everywhere across North Africa housed these checkpoints, if you will, for the caravan roads. Outside of the theater in Sabrata, there's a lot of mosaic floorings that will still exist on the ground. And as you walk over, if you kick your leg a little bit and get rid of the sand, you can see the mosaics still there out in the wild. That being said, a lot of the more interesting mosaics have been excavated and taken indoors. So at the Sabrata ruin site, there is also a museum that has unfortunately been closed for a little while and we haven't been able to enter. But a lot of the most valuable stuff is housed inside of that museum, whether it is the mosaic floors or the heads of statues or the bodies of statues. There's a lot of stuff that will be in that museum. So everything out and about is the stuff that they considered less valuable to maintain, and the things they left out for the locals that will come to these places and walk around and enjoy the sights without really needing to go to the museum. So inside of Sabrata, you'll notice that it is not as big as Liptus Magna. That being said, the city has not really been excavated as well. Inside of Sabrata, your tour guide will likely walk around probably 3 to 4 kilometers and show you all of the different Roman structures that still stand on the land. That being said, Sabrata is probably my least preferred place to go outside of Tripoli. If I get any chances, I'm normally going to Liptus Magna to go and enjoy the architecture there and just the overall vibe.
Okay.
So,
And two more things about Sabratha. One is, again, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And two is, you were correct. The theater was reconstructed around 1930 in the original archaeological work that happened from like 27 to 37.
I had a feeling it would have been. Do you mind if I jump to Tripoli?
Go ahead.
So, Tripoli, which is home base, is the biggest city in Libya. It houses roughly 2 million people, probably a little bit more since the statistics that I read came out. But it is bustling with life. It is busy. There is traffic everywhere. There's a lot of roadworks. There's a lot of construction. There's a lot of business. As you can imagine, it is a massive city on the Mediterranean where the heat in the summer will sizzle an egg on the ground, but in the wintertime, we get enough rain to basically drown the city.
That does beg the question of, when are we coming to Libya to have the best experience?
The best time to visit Libya will be between September and March. And the reason for that is those are the cool periods where you're going to be able to go down to the desert if you really want to, but you'll also be able to enjoy the coastal spaces in a very good temperatured environment. You're talking about 15 degrees Celsius, 10 degrees Celsius. We don't really get anything less than that. In terms of going down to the desert, you're probably looking at nighttime, 5 degrees Celsius. If you're really unlucky, it'll go down to 0. But during the daytime, your temperatures in the desert can reach anything from 15 to 30 degrees. And along the coast, you're looking at roughly 15 to 20 degrees Celsius during the summer months. So if the sun's out, it's generally warm. If the sun's not out, you're probably looking at slightly colder temperatures.
Yeah, and just for our Fahrenheit listeners, so 10 degrees Celsius is 50 and 20 degrees Celsius is just about 70. Comfortable ranges at that time of year.
Oh, the car from Carvana's here. Well, will you look at that? It's exactly what I ordered, like precisely. It would be crazy if there were any catches, but there aren't, right?
Right, because that's how car buying should be. With Carvana, you get the car you want. Choose delivery or pickup, and a week to love it or return it.
Buy your car today with
Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just
speaking into the void?
But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
In Tripoli, you will also have the old town. When coming to Tripoli, one of the first things people do after dropping off their luggage at the hotel is they'll pick a hotel in the city and nearer to the old town, because they'll be able to drop off their luggage and go straight into the city and walk around. In the old town, you'll have a blend of old and new. And a little quick backup here, Libya has seen a wide variety of people pass through it. So we're talking from prehistoric times through to the Garamites down in the desert, through to the Phoenicians that came and established the first big cities, the first big settlements, through to the Ottomans, through to the Romans and the Greeks, and then colonial Italy came and took over during World War I. So we've passed through a lot of different people's hands, and that's leaving aside the Gaddafi era and the King's era as well, because we've had a king here before in Libya. So there's a lot of different hands and a lot of different architectures built on top of each other. The best place to see that is in the old town. You can see Roman columns that still hold up Ottoman houses. It is probably the only place in the world that you can see that. And next door, you will find an Italian-style World War I or II style house with the courtyard down the middle, 4 floors, and it will have been a place where a banker will have lived. In the main square in the old town, you get to see the Bank di Roma, so the main bank that the Italians used during the colonial period. standing across from an Ottoman jail. And right next door to that, there is the Cathedral of St. Francis. So having those three structures right next door to each other is already cool, but being able to sit down and have coffee and just watch people run around the square in the old town is pretty nice. It's a very interesting historic moment if you know what you're looking at. In that same square, there is also a small bookshop. The owner of that bookshop has been there for a very long time. I don't want to give you a number in years, but it is 25 years plus because I can never be sure. There's a lot of Ottoman houses in the old town, obviously. There is the Ark of Marcus Aurelius that stands there as well, that was built as tribute for when he visited the city. So there's a lot of different things inside of the old town that are old and historic. Now, moving over to the newer stuff, because people still live there. We've got a gold market. We've got a spices market. We've got a currency exchange space, which is actually very popular. A lot of the travelers that come through, historically speaking, will go to the old town and see these huge circles and gatherings of people, like it's the stock market in the 1970s, and go, what's going on over there? And then you'll have to explain to them that it is the stock market. They're all exchanging different currencies, whether it's Libyan dinars to euros or USD, whether it's doing bank transfers from one type of bank to another type of bank. They will all stand there and they all know each other and they'll be yelling, I'm looking for $500, who can give me the best price type of thing. It's a very interesting site. It's if the stock market was outdoors and more like overlapped with Forex. It's an interesting place. There's a clock tower there that was newly renovated. It looks really cool. The historic significance of that is unknown, to me at least. Somebody out there will be able to find it. Behind that clock tower, and the reason I bring it up, is there's a small street where there are welders. And these welders aren't welding together car parts or anything like that. They are designing Libyan metal plates that are used at weddings. And you can imagine there's that plate that everything sits on that gets brought out during the wedding. And a lot of these weddings will have newer plates, but historically speaking, those plates were bronze. And these were, historically speaking, bronzesmiths. And over the years, the number of these welders has significantly decreased. But now there is a small street of about 10 stores just behind this clock tower that are really easy to miss. So I always tell people, look for this clock tower, go to the street right behind it, because it is a very narrow street. There's going to be a lot of banging and a lot of fire that you see, but you'll get to see history in the making. So these guys are creating a whole wide variety of items that are used at weddings or special events or just decorations inside of Libyan traditional houses. And they are the only ones that I have seen in the old town in that area. And I've explored the old town very thoroughly.
Before you go on,
yes,
just in terms of historic significance of the Tel clock tower, which I think is the one you're talking about, the Al Tel Square there, that it was erected to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Sultan Abd al-Hamid II's reign in 1906.
That's a new piece of information to me, but very welcome. Thank you. So the other most famous square in Libya is Martyrs Square. And a lot of people, when they first get here, will think the old town and then think Martyrs Square. And Martyrs Square, within the last year, has been completely redesigned. The fountains still exist the same way that they did before, but they've increased the amount of surface area that is walkable. So they've significantly reduced the amount of cars that pass around and pass through. In Martyrs Square, you will get to see families bring their kids. They'll rent bikes. They'll take horses for little rides around. There are gazelles there. There are falcons there. Some of the older kids have scooters. There's motorbikes there as well, small remote control ones that you put a toddler in or a baby in and you drive it around with a remote control. So it's a family-friendly zone that comes alive I want to say after sunset. So in Libya, a lot of time is not told by, oh, I'll meet you at 4 o'clock. We use the 5 prayers every Muslim should do during the day as a way to
Oh,
tell
okay, sure.
time. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was about to make the mistake of saying it happens after Maghrib, which just means sunset. But Maghrib in that context would mean after we go and pray Maghrib, you can come out and you can see it. So
Hmm.
Libya is, it's not even predominantly, it's close to 99.9% Muslim. The vast majority of people are very religious. So one thing that a lot of people notice is in this old town and in the old and new sections of it, when you go and walk around, it's mixed men and women, but it's also a little bit segregated, whereas the women, unless they're with a husband or a brother, they won't really be commingling with anybody else. The rest of Libya is very much like that as well. Women tend to have their own spaces, men tend to have their own spaces. There are family spaces, but commingling is a little bit rare. So that's important to know because Martyrs Square is a family space. So a lot of people that you'll see there will be there with their families. That doesn't mean that I can't go there as a single male. It just means
Hmm.
that there's a certain level of respect and language that is used when you're there. So that throws people off a little bit, where they see all these men and women just walking around in the old town, and then they go to Martyrs Square, and all of a sudden it feels segregated again. And you're like, whoa, what happened here? So I like to try to explain that a little bit to people, where it's more so we're a very Muslim society. They truly abide by
Sure.
these rules. And just generally, this is what happens in these spaces. So family zones tend to be that way.
Okay.
So that is the main portion of Tripoli. There are a lot of other neighborhoods that are affluent and not so fortunate that you can go to, and you can go and experience the local food culture there. And speaking of food, there are a couple of things that Libya is very well known for and you must try in Tripoli. One is the coffee.
Mhm.
After the Italian ruled in Libya, they left behind very good coffee. It's incredibly cheap and incredibly good quality. Coffee, pizza, and we tend to take everything and add Nutella to it as well. So we love our sweets.
Hey, respect.
We love our sweets. So if you get a chance, I would highly recommend you go to a bakery. These bakeries will not just have your regular baguette bread, and that might not be regular where you're from, but it very much is in Libya. We don't really do toasted bread. Everything is a baguette. And all of our
Mm.
sandwiches are baguette sandwiches for the most part, unless it explicitly says like it's a taco or it's toast. So bear that in mind for the food lovers. Libyan traditional dishes, there's like couscous, bazine, rishtet kiskas, and these might sound like completely foreign words to you other than the couscous because it exists in the rest of North
Mhm.
Africa, but Libya has its own flavoring for it. And there are specific spots that your tour guides will be able to point you to where you can go and experience these dishes because Libyans, for the most part, all the way up until about 10 years ago, only really ate at home. I don't remember growing up as a kid going to restaurants with the family. It was always home cooked meal. So a lot of the meals that we eat here in Libya are things that are intended to be shared, like multiple people
Okay.
with spoons eating out of a single plate. And if you go to anybody's house, that's how you can expect to be eating. So a lot of these restaurants, what they'll do is they'll take and portion down everything and make it tourist friendly so that everybody has their own plate. But just bear that in mind. It'll be slightly different when you go to somebody's house or you're invited to somebody's house inevitably to eat these foods.
Also, in the article you wrote for Amateur Traveler, and I will have a link to this so that people know what article I'm talking about, you mentioned a Libyan style pasta with fish, and I'm not going to try and pronounce it.
So, one of the things that I like to do, so using Tripoli as a home base, what
Yeah.
you get to do is you get to get the best food out of Tripoli. So when you go
Hmm.
to Liptis Magna, you're going to be there for lunch. You're going to get to have lunch there. And on your way back, you're going to get to crash at the hotel for a bit. And then we go out to dinner in Tripoli. So the reality of it is you get 3 different dinners in Tripoli. And one of those dinners we normally take our guests to the seafood market. And in this market, it is all of the fresh catches of the day. And you get to go through and pick whatever you want.
Including baby shark, which surprised me.
Yes, baby shark is delicious if you fry it correctly. It is delicious because baby shark has no bones. And if you think about it, what do sharks normally eat? It's usually other fish. And a lot of people like the taste of fish and they taste amazing. So I don't know. My logic might be flawed there, but baby shark is great. You should come and try it. So the dish that you were talking about is mbakabka. And mbakabka, you can have it with beef or you can have it with seafood. So when we go to this seafood market and we pick out the seafood, what we'll do is we'll go over to one of the stalls and basically say, hey, can you make us some mbakabka? Here's all of the seafood that we have. And they'll ask you, what type of pasta would you like it to be in? And they will make you your mbakabka as you sit down and watch the fishermen either bring in their produce or get their boats ready for the next day. Depends what time of day you go. So that is like a dinner experience that we like to do a lot. If you don't do that and you're not the biggest fan of seafood, what we normally do is we'll make mbakabka in the desert. Mbakabka in the desert is an underrated dish, especially during the winter months where it might be a little bit cold. Having a solid pasta before bed, it makes you sleep amazing. It's terrible for your diet. Don't do it, but it makes you sleep amazing. So that's normally what we'll do. So mbakabka is a dynamic dish, and we try to take people's dietary requirements into consideration. But as always, our guides have their own preferences, and we'll give you a little nudge of, you need to try this. You need to try this.
Okay. Where else did you recommend here in our 1 week itinerary?
So we're up to day 3 and we've got 2 options. We've got 3-4 days left. So either you go and do Ghadames and Nalut. The reason these two are grouped together is because Ghadames is the pearl of the desert, as UNESCO calls it. We really like to go there, but there's no airport. And it is an 8-hour drive there. So we try to break apart the trip with Nalut in the middle. Not to say Nalut is not worth driving out to see on your own, because a lot of people do it. Nalut is amazing. It has a lot of Amazigh culture. So the people in the mountains are called Amazighis. We have a lot of them here in Libya. They have their own language. They have their own culture. They basically have maintained their granaries, which I call the first banks ever, because a bank is where you hold your valuable goods, and their food will have been the most valuable thing that they have. And these are places where all the families of a village in an area will store their produce, and it was like their bank account. And they had different ways of securing it. You get to go see the locks that they have there. So that's number one.
And very picturesque. I don't know how I would describe it, but it looks to me like something out of Tatooine, something out of Star Wars. Just a very interesting sight. That picture really caught me as a place I wanted to see.
So the picture that you're describing is in Qasr Nalut, which means Castle of Nalut. And for the Europeans, no, we do not use the word castle the same way that you guys do, but it is still a castle. So that is one of, I would like to say, 5 granaries that we can go to. 3 of them are very well maintained. The other 2 still require a little bit of work. But on the way, we do stop at Qasr Nalut. And then what we'll do is we'll go to what is basically a traditional Amazigh home, where it is like they dug into the mountain a little bit and created these tunnels. And inside of these tunnels is the house. So when you're walking through, you are inside of the mountain. What that allows them to do is keep the temperatures cool in the summertime, but not too cool in the wintertime. It won't get too cold in there. So we'll go there and we'll have another dish that I did not mention actually, called ftat. And the best way I can describe ftat is, imagine if you took a very razor thin flatbread, tore it apart into tiny little pieces, then layered on a tomato-based soup, added a little bit of meat, and then started mushing it together and eating it with your hands. And to some people, that might have sounded disgusting. To some people, that might have sounded absolutely exhilarating and enthralling. I can tell you that it tastes amazing, and different ways of making that very thin flatbread changes the flavor alongside with, obviously, the sauce. So in Nalut, we'll have a ftat dish, but also later on in Ghadames, you'll get to taste it, the same dish, 400 kilometers away, and you'll start to be able to point out the differences, because the Amazigh people have their own spices and herbs and culture, but also the Ghadamsi people will make it slightly differently.
And the people that you're calling Amazigh, I'm seeing are also the Berber. It's the same people with two different names.
Yes, they also can be called the Berbers. I have been told a number of times to try to stick to Libya. Yeah, I've been told a number of times to try to stick to Amazigh.
Okay.
So yeah, once you've seen the granaries and you've experienced the old traditional Amazigh home, you've had some ftat, we hop back on the road and we drive another roughly 400 kilometers to Ghadames. And once you get to Ghadames, on the way to Ghadames, you're going to start to feel like you're driving into the desert. And the reality of it is you are. You're going to be on the border of Tunisia, Algeria, and Libya. And one of the activities that we do in Ghadames is actually going to a lookout point where you can look into Tunisia, look into Algeria while standing in Libya. But going back, as soon as you drive into Ghadames, we get dropped off at a hotel, go get a good night's sleep, and first thing in the morning, you will be picked up after breakfast and taken to the Old Town. The Old Town in Ghadames, there is a fantastic tour guide that works there. His name is Abdullah. He is amazing, absolutely amazing, perfect English, very knowledgeable, incredible with explaining things in the simplest possible way. And he has stories for absolutely every single nook and cranny. The Ghadamsi people are very unique. Out of all of the history I've described so far, I think the Ghadamsi people, when you go and sit down in the Old Town and you sit down with Abdullah or any Ghadamsi person, you ask questions of why things are designed the way they are, the way they have preserved all of that knowledge is incredible. So even in historic times, like pre-Arab Spring Libya, during the Gaddafi era, during the King's era, and even before that, Ghadames was always considered to be one of the most interesting places to visit in Libya, and it was pushed as the forefront or the face of Libyan tourism. So you get to experience that there. It's really unfortunate that the airport isn't operational, but it is worth the drive. I will actually be driving to Ghadames in 2 days.
And another UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Yes, we have a lot of UNESCO World Heritage sites. It's insane, isn't it? Inside of the Old Town, every detail matters. Everything from the airflow through to the way they light up the Old Town, through to the way they use the leftover pieces of bark from the palm trees. Every detail really matters to them. They are the kings of sustainability. They have a very unique structure inside that would look very random to you, but if you stand on one corner and I stand on another corner, there are places where you will be able to see me and I would not be able to see you clearly. And those are designed so that they could see and fight off intruders. And they have a lot of stories around that stuff.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
This episode is brought to you by McAfee.
I got a message that our flight was canceled. But they can put us on another flight, and we just need to confirm our credit card info.
Wait, I got a security alert from McAfee. It flagged that message as a scam.
McAfee's scam detector automatically spots and alerts you to suspicious texts, emails, and deepfake videos. Learn more at McAfee.com/online protection.
But without spoiling any of those stories, There's a really nice cafe in one of the old Ghadamsi houses. It used to be a courtyard and was turned into a cafe. It is incredibly well designed. It is really nice. It's very cool there. In the summertime, it's chill in the winter months, and you get to sit down there and have a coffee and take a break because there's a lot of walking that is involved through a lot of this Ghadames old town. I think it might take you roughly a day of just walking around to be able to see every single street corner. And you'll notice that a lot of it is under light renovations. So they don't really do big renovation projects there. They touch everything up in small bits as they go so that they're not really hindering people coming to enjoy the history. So Ghadames is very popular even amongst the local Libyans. So a lot of people will go and spend a day or two there and both enjoy the old town, enjoy the lookout point and the view of Tunisia, Algeria, and Libya. But there's also another area called Ras Al Ghul, which translates to the head of the ghost, which is a mountain, like a little mountain with a castle. Again, please don't come and fight me, Europeans. It's a little castle on top. And that castle has a story, an Islamic story, about how the Prophet's messengers got caught there and ended up in a fight. And Libyans love that story. So they'll travel pretty far to come and see the place with their own two eyes and come with a guide. The other thing that you get to do in Ghadames is you get to go to the sand dunes. And the sand dunes are basically about 1 kilometer away from the Algerian border. You can actually see the fence between Libya and Algeria when you're standing on the sand dunes. And that fence is like, you cross it, something bad might happen.
Not do that.
Yeah, we don't recommend doing that. But surprisingly, and this might be better off the record, but surprisingly, a lot of influencers absolutely are obsessed with jumping over that fence to get into Algeria and then coming back to Libya. I've never understood it, but they are obsessed with it.
Yeah, followers does not imply IQ. Let's just say.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many people I've had to talk out of that. So on top of the sand dunes, you get a view of both Ghadames and Algeria and the vast deserts around you. So while you were driving in, you will have seen a lot of sand. In fact, you probably might have felt a couple of bumps on the road from the sand blowing onto the road, but you'll be able to see a lot of that from on top of these sand dunes. And in terms of transportation, all of our regular cars get left behind at the Old Town in Ghadames. There is a team of experienced 4x4 drivers that are very familiar with the dunes that go and do all the driving. It is unfortunate, but on my tours, and I can't speak for anybody else, I cannot allow anybody to drive around those sand dunes. They are incredibly dangerous, especially at night. Mm-hmm. So just bear that in mind. These are like very high sand dunes.
Quite large, yeah, for the picture that you sent me.
Yes. So we'll go up these sand dunes and set up and have some tea and watch the sunset. Enjoy the time there, get some stories. We have a very specific type of wood in Libya. It's not incense per se, but it has a very interesting smell. So that smell is like, when I think about those sand dunes, that smell is the first thing that comes to mind now. So it's like when I look at these pictures, they pop now that I've been there. So if you have more time during the trip and you would like to experience an oasis, a saltwater oasis, then we would be driving back to Tripoli. And from Tripoli, we would take a flight to Sebha. In Sebha, we would be met by another group of extremely talented 4x4 drivers that will take us directly out into the middle of the desert. So from Sebha to the oases is roughly 120 kilometers. The 120 kilometer stretch from Sebha to the oasis would basically be a 3 to 4 hour drive because of the way that we have to weave around the sand dunes.
Yep.
In that general area, there are desert sphinxes, which is little foxes. There's all sorts of scorpions and there's other wildlife there. During this portion of the trip, there are no hotels. There are no bathrooms. There is some running water because we've drilled little water wells and added pumps. pumps that are, it's really interesting. You can get solar panels there in the desert, but because of the amount of sand being pushed onto these solar panels, they degrade very quickly. So it's very difficult to keep a pump running on a solar panel, even if you have a battery there. So what people do is they've built the infrastructure and left the battery portion out. So you'll see one of the tour guides drive his car up to one of these showers and then connect his car battery to the pump in order to get the pump to refill whatever tank that had water in it. And if you're lucky, the tank will have already had water and you'll just be able to use gravity to be able to take a shower or wash your hands or whatever you need. But you're in the middle of the desert. You're on the fringes here. There's very little infrastructure. Generally, do not expect to have cell service here. If you're lucky, we might be able to find some Starlink satellite internet. They tend to use that for emergencies only, generally. So there are about 20 oases. Some of them have water. A lot of them are dried out. My personal favorite oasis is Gabr Aoun. And the story behind that is Gabr Aoun basically means the tombstone of Aoun. So nobody knows who this person Aoun is, and nobody knows if he actually died there. But as long as time, we have called this place Gabr Aoun, and I've always found that just funny how nobody asks questions about these types of stories. Everybody just keeps calling it the same thing, and it's turned into the name that I am now giving on a podcast, sharing with you guys here in the States. But that's the way it works. Outside of Gabr Aoun, there's al-Ma, which means the mother of water, a smaller oasis. It looks just as beautiful, just as nice. There's al-Hassan, which means the mother of the horse, and that's because of the way the oasis looks. So all of these oases are very salt watered. So even if you don't know how to swim, going into the water, you will immediately flow. It is very much like the Dead Sea, where you float up immediately. If you exit the water and you do not wash off with fresh water, you will go really salty really quickly. You will look like a different person. There will be a white layer all over your skin, and it does not feel very nice. So, yeah.
I assumed that as oases would be freshwater. That is just something I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, as I wasn't either when I dove in head first and I came out with red eyes, man. Okay, so I'm going to try to skip over and cover a little bit of the Caucasus Mountains because I've only really covered the portion of Libya that we do trips in. If we do custom trips, we can take you anywhere around Libya. So I've left out Benghazi, Tuqra, Talmita, Shahat, which has the Temple of Zeus in it. There's a fair few other places that are amazing, but Libya is
you country. Had to pick. I made you pick.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. So after driving around the oases, we're definitely heading down to Abadi, and there's a campsite there where you'll get electricity, comfort, and you'll go back to regular normal life. You can expect the oases portion of the trip to probably take up to 2 to 3 days, depending on where you want to go specifically. There will be options once you get there because not all oases are 100% available all the time because the sand dunes shift. And that means the roads change. Sure. So there are no guarantees that you'll be able to access everything, but that information is always more readily available closer to your trip. You're not going to get, I don't know, a 500-meter sand dune or 200-meter sand dune shift locations too drastically to stop you from traveling after you've booked your flight. Okay. So once you get down to Abadi, your first thing you'll do is get some rest at a nice hotel, and then we'll head down to Jirma. In Jirma, there are small pyramids, very similar to the pyramids in Giza, but a lot smaller. So those pyramids are from the Jeremites, and that's its own archaeological site. Going further down south, you'll hit the Caucasus Mountains, and you'll see a wide variety of natural sand meets Mars type views and aesthetics. There's a lot to do in those places, in this area. You'll have no satellite internet, almost 100%. It's really famous and really popular during solar eclipses because you're in a location with zero light pollution. especially if a solar eclipse is available in that area. Zero light pollution means that you'll be able to see the stars very clearly. And a lot of people think they're going to need their phone flashlight to be able to leave their tents at night. In the desert, in Libya, all you need is your eyes, because the stars above you usually light the way as long as there are no clouds. It's very bright even at night. So the Akakos Mountains is a little bit of an extra trip. It is long, it is tedious, it's closer to an expedition than anything. I'm more than happy to provide more information, but the Akakos region is probably about 250 to 400 kilometers of space.
Okay.
So there is a lot to do and see there. There's a lot of wildlife, and it's right on the border of Janet and Algeria. So it has a very similar vibe and feel to it. So that's all of Libya in a nutshell, at least the portion that we go and do tours in.
Excellent. Before we get to our wrap-up questions, anything else people should know before they book a trip to Libya?
Before you come to Libya, I would highly recommend that you do a little bit of reading on the culture, because I've had a lot of people that have visited Algeria and Egypt, and when they come to Libya, they have a little bit of a culture shock. Do a little bit of reading, look some stuff up on YouTube, listen to the podcast. There's a lot of information here. But generally, the things that you really need to know are that visas are electronic now. You do need a sponsor and a tour guide to organize your route and itinerary to make sure that you're safe along the way. That being said, you can go just about anywhere that you want in the country as long as it's within reason. The way I see it is we ask for permission to set these trips up. And just because somebody says no to one place doesn't mean that the whole trip doesn't have to happen.
Okay. Excellent. As we get to our wrap-up questions, you're standing in the prettiest spot in all of Libya. Where are you standing and what are you looking at? Doesn't have to be a place you've covered already.
The prettiest spot in all of Libya, I'm a big fan of the desert. I'm a big fan of the oases. So there's a sand dune right across from Gabaran, which is one of the oases. I love driving up to it as well because it's so fun just getting there. And then the view that I'm thinking about is when I'm driving down, just seeing the oasis coming directly at you before you take that right turn to veer away from it. The view from up there is incredible. It's insane.
Excellent. You lived all over the world. One thing that makes you laugh and say only in Libya.
There's a lot of those, actually. There's genuinely a lot of them, and it's really difficult to pick just one and make it PG. Let's see.
Off the record, what are you thinking of that's not PG?
Off the record, so I had this one person, I walk into a coffee shop, and you have to remember that this is like in the middle of nowhere, Libya. I'm on the road. I was on a cross-country trip from Tripoli going all the way to the other border, like the other side. So like past Benghazi, past all of it. I went all the way to Alexandria this summer. So during a portion of that, I stop at this coffee shop and it's 7 a.m. I'm tired. I'm asking for my coffee. And I turn around and somebody's wearing like an old man with a really white beard. And like he looks like he has grandkids. He's wearing a shirt that says, "I am a slut." And I just looked at him and I had this moment of realization, I burst out laughing, and then had to explain myself to him of why I was laughing in his face at 7 a.m.
So he probably had no idea what his shirt said.
No, it really didn't at all.
I think that actually qualifies as PG. I think we could use that.
I don't know. I feel like that old man might find me one day.
I think you're okay.
Okay. So do you want me to repeat that or are we good?
No, that's fine. I'll just use that.
Okay. Sounds good.
And if you had to summarize Libya in just 3 words, what 3 words would you pick?
History, underrated, generosity.
Okay. And I'm going to have you explain the third one.
So generosity to me is, I've traveled the world. I have seen how generous cultures are around the world. One of the reasons why I wanted to start Intu Libya is I found it so difficult to explain to people where I am from accurately and have them truly understand what Libya is. So the generosity piece is you can have absolutely nothing here in Libya and you can be homeless, but you will still eat every single meal. Nobody will turn you down for food. If you genuinely need something, somebody will be willing to help you. So the generosity piece is it's not just welcoming into the houses. It's not just helping you get directions or go to A to B, but it is a genuine care for your best interests. In some cases, they will fight you because they think that you don't know what's best for you in any given situation. And when I say fight you, like verbally, they'll try to talk you out of it. But like they're very insistent on it and they'll try to get you to look at all of the different perspectives. And it's not coming from a place of, oh, they know better than you. It is genuinely, they are worried about you. So generosity in all facets of life.
Excellent. Our guest again has been AJ Ajay, founder of Intu Libya, intulibya.com. If you're interested in the tours that they run, there's also a blog that they have on there with more information on Libya. And then I'll also put a link to that article that AJ wrote on Amateur Traveler that's similar to the itinerary that we've talked about here with pictures of some of these wonderful sites. AJ, thanks so much for coming on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your obvious love for Libya.
Thank you for having me and I appreciate it.
Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
The Subaru Share the Love event is on from November 20th to January 2nd. During this event, Subaru donates to charities like the National Park Foundation, helping protect over 400 national parks. When you purchase or lease a new vehicle during the 2025 Subaru Share the Love event, Subaru and its retailers will make a minimum $300 donation to charity. Visit Subaru.com/share to learn more.
A special thanks to the patrons of the show who help support Amateur Traveler financially. I enjoyed getting together with the patrons just a couple days ago for our monthly Zoom call. If you're interested in learning more about becoming a patron of the show, go to patreon.com/amateurtraveler. There are still spots available on what looks like it's going to be a small group of travelers to Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan in May. Hope you can make it. I'm planning on having a really great time. Learn more at amateurtraveler.com/trips or drop me an email. Right after the first of the year, we'll probably start voting on where to go in 2027. I heard from Cindy, who took some exceptions with the episode we did on land-based budget travel to Galapagos Islands. Sorry to be Debbie Downer, but land-based tourism is the most unsustainable way to visit the Galapagos Islands. More hotels and restaurants, as well as all the shops needed to serve both exponentially increasing numbers of land-based tourists, as well as all the people moving to the islands for jobs. Serving those tourists is destroying both the islands where those tourists and residents stay/live and the surrounding areas. And there's more to Cindy's comment, but the only thing I will say to that is I don't know the details there in terms of that, although I do tend to trust Ecuador to manage the resources because they generally do a good job at the Galapagos, but I understand where Cindy's coming from, and so you can check out her whole comment in the show notes of this episode. I also heard from Anthony St. Clair, former guest on the show, about the episode we did on northern Taiwan. My wife and I visited Taiwan for 2 months earlier this year with our tween and teen. We had such an amazing time. And second, the safety, friendliness, and excellent food. The episode gave us a lot of ideas for our next visit. And P.S., the Aura frame was a timely suggestion. Jody and I had been mulling gifts for our parents and just ordered some for the holidays. Thank you. That's always nice to hear, too. It never hurts to hear that people are supporting the sponsors who support me. And with that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to chris2x@gmail.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening.